Get higher, baby. Get higher, baby. Get higher, girl. Hey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Knights of the Pageless Library. This is a little podcast dedicated to reviewing audiobooks. I am Bo Knight, and with me, as always, is Ryan Knight. And today we are taking a look at Dune, the audiobook version, read for us by a bunch of people, but mainly Scott Brick. I'm trying to get the list of the other ones.
Yeah, can you see a full list? I can't even see the
Mm.
full list.
No. Scott Brick.
I know Oliver Wyman's in there somewhere.
Yeah, but the list I'm seeing, he's not on there.
I know, I noticed that too.
It's a bunch of narrators. I think like 9 or 10. I'm not seeing them all listed.
Right.
It's
And
a
we're
lot.
gonna this will come up later too, I'm sure. And this book was written by Frank Herbert. And we are taking a look at Dune. So this was a little confusing to me at first because Dune is the first of the Dune series, just Dune. And then there apparently is another thing called the Dune Saga, which is all of the books, including prequel books to this, which puts this at like the 12th book in the series. But as far as I understand, this is the original book that spawned this universe. So just be aware of that.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to this series.
Yeah, this is some massive world building. And so before we get too far in, I want to say that I think when we mentioned that we were covering this book last time, I had mentioned that it was an abridged version. Now, I did, and I think I didn't get that incorrect. Audible states this is an unabridged version of this book. However, most of the reviews for this book, which there are a lot, like 76,000, they say that this is not a true reading of the book in a way. Now, from what I can tell, it looks like people are upset because some of the parts are dramatized, which we're going to talk about that, which leaves the narrator not stepping in to say, like, oh, Paul said this or Leto said, because I'm assuming they're just relying on the fact that you know who the voice actor is, and that's what's telling you who is speaking. I'm not 100% sure. If you do happen to know, please feel free to email us. We would love to know what exactly is going on with this audiobook. kotpl.pod@gmail.com is the easiest way to reach out to us right now. Please, though, let me know what is exactly going on with this. Is this a true reading of the book? Is a lot of stuff left out? I would love to know because I've obviously never read the physical book.
No, I don't think I've ever met anybody who's actually read the physical book.
It probably because it's a beast. It has to be a beast of a book.
I mean, it's no bigger than a Game of Thrones, I'm sure.
No, I mean, but this one comes in at 21 hours, which is this is a pretty long audiobook. 21 hours is not like crazy long, but that's a substantial listen.
Yeah, it's up there for sure.
So for anyone who doesn't know, we'll get the other details out of the way real quick. So the original Dune book was written by Frank Herbert in 1965. The audiobook version we are listening to looks like it was released in 2007 by Audio Renaissance. So, and while we said this is narrated by a bunch of people, and I also said this is dramatization, that's not 100% true either.
I wouldn't even call it a dramatization. I feel like it tries to be in the beginning, and then they kind of forgot that it was, and then at the end they kind of remembered again.
Yeah, and I have a huge problem with that. So
it doesn't bug me at all.
Oh, it bothered me so bad, so much. And the reason it bothered me is because we open up, I was enjoying it in the beginning, where it's like a full cast of people. Everybody had their own, every character had their own narrator, which was good. And these are good narrators, and these are good people reading these lines. And then like the next chapter comes along, those people are all gone. And it's just one guy narrating. And I actually don't even know who was that guy. Who is the main narrator?
I'm not sure,
I don't know
honestly,
either.
because he
So
narrates probably 85% of it.
yeah, by himself. Right. And I actually don't know exactly who he was, the main narrator, because there's a lot of it, yeah, where he's the sole narrator. And then every like other chapter it switches back to being like a dramatization. And it was just so jarring to me, and I did not enjoy that at all. I would have enjoyed it more if it was one or the other, if they had stuck to one format.
It is incredibly inconsistent. I know there's a part where like the Baron is talking and then it's the narrator voicing him and then it switches for one line to the other guy and then it goes
Yeah.
back.
And
It's
what
really weird.
who in the world thought that was a good idea?
I don't know. I think what happened is this ended up being a lot more ambitious than they thought, and it probably ended up costing way more money than they thought.
Well, and that's kind of what it felt like. I also like, again too, with the inconsistencies, like sometimes there's background sounds, sometimes there's
Yeah,
not.
and that's one thing I hated was like the music that they would like sprinkle in sometimes
Yeah,
for almost seemingly no reason
right.
is would take me right out of it. And I mean, we'll get to it more when we actually like start summarizing, but I found it extremely hard to focus on what was going on when there was like just random like music in the background sometimes.
Yeah, I agree, and I just, yeah, and I don't. We're kind of getting heavy-handed here, for our opening, but this is kind of important for people to know right up front that you're, even though it looks like at first glance that this is a dramatization because it says it's narrated by all these people, and when you start playing the book, it's going to say narrated by it's going to name everybody.
There's like 9 of them, I think.
Yeah, and then it'll open up, and that is true, and then they all go away, and it's, to me, that was very distracting. I don't know. I was not a big fan of that part of it.
Well, that
Um,
and they use some of the voice actors more than one time for
uh,
doing the same voice for different characters, and it's really
which,
confusing.
yes, exactly, and yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of that either. Um, so before we're already off in the weeds, so
I don't know. I
we'll
think that was very. I feel like that all of that went under narrator.
I think so too, actually. You're right, because, and I think that's important information to be had up front, because like I said, that I think that's important for people to know going into this, because I've never listened to another book that does something like that at all.
Oh,
And I've listened to a lot of books. So
yeah.
that's saying something. Um I kind of skipped over, Frank Herbert as an author, but I would say this is what he's known for, is the Dune series as a whole. He has a ton of books under his belt, mostly in what looks like the sci-fi fantasy type of realm. This is like his bread and butter.
Yeah.
And when I say he
Does
has a
he
lot
only
of
write about
books,
Dune? That's what it looks like.
no, he does have other books, it looks like, too. Yeah, he actually has a considerable amount of books, but they almost all, to me, scream like sci-fi fantasy. So I think this is kind of his, what he does. Um, and I mean, that's very apparent, I mean, yeah, so he has over 50 titles on Audible alone, which is a lot of books.
Some of those are just Dune in like different languages.
Other languages, I just saw that too. Yeah, so I don't know if you can count those exactly, but I mean, this is the first Frank Herbert novel I've certainly ever listened to, so I can't speak for any of his other work, but I would say this is probably what he is known for, is Dune, especially Dune, this book, and then maybe the first few in the just Dune series.
Yeah, at least like Dune Messiah and Children of Dune.
Yeah, exactly. The first couple books in the series.
Because I didn't even realize there were so many more.
Yeah, there's 6 books in the Dune series alone, and then I think there's like 6 or 7 in the Dune saga, up leading up to Dune. Oh, there's 11 in the Dune saga before Dune.
Oh wow.
And then there's also
What the hell are those about?
two more after Dune, the Dune series.
Huh. Okay.
And it looks like Scott Brick narrates most of them. So
Oh,
that's
good on him.
interesting. Okay, so what's like a good brief description of what the story is about? You got something in mind?
Sci-fi, Game of Thrones plus drugs.
Plus drugs. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Sci-fi Game of Thrones plus drugs. I like it. Yeah, instead
That's
of
like
a
the most
fantasy,
concise way I could put it.
yeah, instead of a fantasy Game of Thrones like
Yeah.
Game of Thrones is, this is a sci-fi Game of Thrones. That's a very good way to put it. Yeah, so a lot of political struggles, a lot of back and
proper
forth
names.
Yeah, titles very important in this. Yeah, that's a pretty good way to put it. So I already dropped this, but this book, it does come in right at 21 hours, so pretty long.
Yeah, it's up there. I would say other than Game of Thrones, this is like one of the longer books I've listened to.
Yeah, this is 21 hours is pretty substantial. We've said it multiple times before, but I think like 10 hours is good for most people. So once you start pushing beyond like that 12, 14-hour range, that kind of deters some people.
Yeah, I know when you tell somebody like, oh, this book's 21 hours. Like, Jesus.
Yeah, that's almost a whole day.
Getting close.
So you could, as always, if you signed up for like an Audible trial, you could get this as your first free book. Or if you were to purchase this book, it is $47.93.
Oh dang, I'm seeing it for $28.95.
Whoa, where are you seeing it for $28.95?
Right here it says buy with one click, sold and delivered by Audible.
Dang. Well, there you go. So there's a range of different prices. And from what I've been understanding too, if you purchase tokens for your Audible account, you can get those for like $10 a piece. So then obviously you exchange a token for the book for like about $10. So okay. Now the big ones. Is this easy to follow as a story? No, I don't think so either. I think the narrating issues I had with it aside, this is still kind of hard to follow.
And I think a lot of that is just it's hard to know what the terms mean.
Sure.
And they throw them around from the beginning like you know exactly what that means.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to follow, at least for like the first third of me, of like exactly who's who and what's going on.
Yeah, and I think that's why I'm not like a huge sci-fi genre fan, because a lot of books, this book I think is pretty mild on the sci-fi word salad, but I have a hard time with sci-fi books usually for that reason. They start throwing around all these made up terms that they made up, and you're supposed to understand them from the beginning. And that can be very off-putting. And I think this book, like, I caught onto it relatively quickly, and I think this book is pretty light on the word salad stuff. But a lot of these things that Frank Herbert came up with on his own do make it kind of hard to follow, like, what exactly we're talking about, where we're talking about, who we're talking about. So I do agree. I think this book is an advanced listen at best. This is I would not recommend this for somebody for like their first audiobook by any means.
No.
And so is this one easy listening? Would you say it's easy to listen to?
Once I got into it, yes.
Okay.
But for like the first 5 or 6 hours, I was having to listen to it in like little chunks.
Sure. I didn't enjoy listening to this one very much, solely for the narrating issues and the weird sound effects and all the stuff that was just kind of distracting from the story.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying anybody, like the main narrator to the individual people, everybody did a good job. That's not the point. The point was that they needed to have picked a a format and stuck with it. And I have no idea who signed off on not just doing that. Okay. So what do you think? What's your recommendation on this one?
I actually really enjoyed this.
Okay.
I don't think I understood it very well,
Okay.
but I do like the political intrigue that's kind of happening, and I don't know, just like learning about Arrakis is kind of is I don't know, I found myself kind of liking it because the story is wild. It's
Sure.
absolutely wild. There's basically magic, it seems like.
Mhm.
But like once I kind of started to understand everything, I kind of wanted to know like what was going to happen.
Sure. Oh yeah, I could see that. Um, I was pretty let down by this one, to be honest. I had only ever really like heard of Dune, and like I told you, I'd watched the old movie, like the 1984 movie, way back in the day, so I could remember like just bits and pieces of that, which we might talk about that at a later date. But listening to this, like if you're going into this kind of like I did, I honestly thought this was gonna be like more action oriented
Oh,
and
really?
exciting. Yeah. And
See,
it's
I came in expecting like Game of Thrones, boring, long-winded.
okay. Yeah.
I think maybe because I came in with that mindset, I ended up enjoying it, especially coming right off of a Game of Thrones. It felt
Okay.
like, oh, this is just space Game of Thrones, okay.
Right.
And
See,
I was kind of enjoying it. I'm not gonna lie to you. I
yeah,
kind of enjoyed this book, and I think I'm gonna listen to it again.
this, well, in this, Space Game of Thrones is a good way to put it because that's, I would say 90% of what you're getting is just like political struggles of power,
Hmm.
basically, and
And
backstabbing.
like how to manipulate people and stuff like that,
Yeah,
and kind of like how to set up your workers for success.
sure.
And I don't know, I eat that shit up, dude. I don't know. I like once I got into this, because I think I was talking to you. I was like, yeah, I got like 14 hours left, and then I listened to like 9 hours the next day, and I was
Yeah,
like a smile on my face the whole time. It's like, oh man, this is great.
right. Huh. I I don't know. I guess I was expecting more because this book is like highly praised by tons of people. Like this has won a lot of awards, and a lot of people will point to this as like, the pinnacle of like some sci-fi stuff. Um I just was I mean, like I thought it was good. I'm not going to say it's a bad story by any means. I guess it's just not quite what I was expecting. Um I gotta give Frank Herbert though a ton of credit because his naming convention on point. Oh man,
Yeah.
like the names he picked for stuff and came up with for people and things. Oh man, on point. I don't know if I've ever heard better. Um, yeah, I guess I just didn't know there was gonna be so much like downtime between what they were like, what was moving things. There's so much more things moving behind the scenes that you're just kind of expected to realize as you listen than
Mhm.
is moving in your line of vision, basically. And I'm not gonna lie, to be honest, I still don't fully understand the conflict here. I really don't.
Oh, me neither.
Okay, good.
Really, I don't think I understood like 45% of this book, to be honest, especially like the
Right.
first third. And I was just trying to figure out names.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is hard in the beginning to figure out names.
Well,
And
the
there's a
freaking the
few.
Benny Gesserit, the Harkonnen, the freaking
Yeah.
there's so many like, okay, but what does that mean?
Right. And that is tough in the beginning. And I think once you start understanding it, it makes it much easier to listen to. But like I said, I like, and please feel free to email me and be like, you are a dumb. This is what it's about. And I'm sure there is a deep meaning here. And I think this is one of those books that people could spend their whole lives being like, this is what the Book of Dune is about. And somebody else could be like, no, I've studied the Book of Dune for 20 years and it's actually about this. Um, like I think there's a lot you could interpret here as well. Um, but for the life of me, I don't fully understand the conflict, to be honest.
It's all about
Um,
spice melange, dude.
I know, but all right, we're gonna pass the spoiler wall now. So for anybody who's new here, we're gonna go ahead and talk about what we can remember about the book. Please, I know we're not gonna remember everything because 21 hours is a lot to condense down into like a 1 hour talk about it. So please, if we left out your favorite part, please email me, let me know, and maybe we'll bring it up in a later episode. But for now, just be aware. We're gonna talk about the whole story. So if you don't want it spoiled for you, please go listen to it and then come back here and hear what we have to say about it.
The one guy who's holding out on Dune spoilers this whole time.
He's like starting to write an email right now. He's like, oh, okay, they're gonna wait. Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, I'm having a hard time even remembering how this book opens.
What is the first thing?
I'm pretty sure if I had to guess, it's a oh my gosh. It's when the Harkonnen are gonna be giving up ownership of Arrakis, right, to the Atreides, correct? But I don't remember like who's talking about what or why when it's happening.
I think it might open up with the Baron and talking to Piter.
Piter and Fade Routha, right?
Okay, yeah, I think so.
Because yes, yeah, you're correct. Because they are planning what they're going to do once they relinquish ownership of Arrakis to the Atreides, right? Okay. So as you said, great, like comparison between this and Game of Thrones, which I'm sure that George R.R. Martin took a lot of inspiration from this. Now that I've listened to
I kind of
this,
think he did.
yeah, because this book is all about like fighting houses and fighting for like resources and things that they can use to benefit themselves. Except it's not on an island; it's in space over planets.
Yeah.
So we basically hear from the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. He's talking with Piter, who is his
Mentat.
his mentat. Thank you. Which I gather is like a specific class of training. He's also like an assassin, and he's like a kind of like
I don't
the
know if
Duke's-
assassin is always part of it though.
I don't know if it is either. That's a good point.
I think a
but he's
mentat
kind
is
of
just essentially like your scribe who like has like brain like really good memory and stuff like that. And he's like your personal person like you come to with information and they give you more information and then they like help you figure out a plan of action.
Yeah, he's like a really like he's like the right hand man, also a strategist at the same time. But Piter is an assassin, right?
Yeah,
he's
Piter
like he's known for it.
He's like a sick, twisted fuck.
Yeah, like really bad. And so then also Fade Routha is there, and that is the Baron's nephew, right?
Yeah.
One of them. And they're discussing their plans because this is I'm not gonna lie, right away I don't fully understand what's happening. Why the Harkonnen are to relinquish ownership of Arrakis to the Atreides.
They did it because the Emperor told them to, right? Because they're trying to lure the Atreides to freaking Arrakis to eliminate them. I think that's the whole point.
That's what the Emperor wants to do?
Mm-hmm.
Or is that what the Baron wants to do?
That's what the Emperor wants to do. Maybe not the Emperor, like the younger.
Or is it the Count?
Yeah.
Okay. Why though?
I don't know. We don't get in because the Atreides seem like solid people. Honestly, I don't know. But that's why they do that. I'm pretty sure.
Okay. So all right. So when we talk about Harkonnen and Atreides, just know we're talking about pretty much the two main warring houses of this particular book. And the Harkonnen is led by Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, and then the Atreides are led by Duke Leto Atreides. So we'll just get that established right away.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think you're right. If I remember right, they're talking about what they're going to do. The Harkonnen are going to give up power of Arrakis willingly. They're going to relinquish it to the Atreides. So Arrakis, or Dune, is basically a desert planet, but that has this specific resource on it known as spice melange. And spice is mined on the planet, and then it is sent off planet through the rest of the star system to other planets, because apparently this is the only place you can get this stuff.
It can't. Yeah, it cannot be synthesized.
Right. So it's sent everywhere else. So basically it's worth a ton of money to whoever is in control of the spice.
Yeah.
But what the Harkonnens' plan is they're going to allow the Atreides to take over. Now, so is it the Atreides then supposed to give up whatever planet they lived on before and move to Dune?
Yeah.
Is that how it works? They are supposed to then move all their shit
Yeah, they're
to
giving
Arrakis.
up their water planet. I can't remember what it's called.
I can't remember off the top of my head either. It sounds like a super nice place though. Like
Yeah,
when they
it's
talk
supposed to be
about it.
like paradise in the solar system.
Yeah. Okay, that makes more sense to me then, because at first I was like, but if the Atreides have 2 planets, then what difference does it make? But that makes more sense, that they're trying to lure all of them to Dune so that they can eliminate them. So basically, Vladimir Harkonnen has this plan that one of the doctors, right, even though he's imperially trained, is going to betray the Duke Leto, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I remember all that stuff. And they're like, well, how is the doctor going to do it? Because apparently if they're imperially trained, they are physically incapable of breaking their training. But apparently Piter came up with a way to break Dr. Yui's training, right?
Yeah, which I don't remember how.
I don't remember how either. But either way, that's what's going to happen. They're going to betray especially the nobles. So the Duke and she's not his wife.
Concubine.
Yeah, Jessica, and then their son Paul. And then if I remember right, we jump over to those people. We jump over to the Atreides on their home planet, preparing to leave to go to Arrakis, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so then we get Paul talking with like his mother. Oh, and then Paul has to go through his little deal, right, with the
I don't think
Reverend
that
Mother.
happens until they're on Arrakis though, because she shows up later.
Is that when they get to Arrakis? Okay, I thought it was before they left.
And it might have been, but she shows up again on Arrakis.
Oh yeah, she's definitely there because she is like the Reverend Mother of the Bene Gesserits, right? She's one of the
Mhm.
highest ranked in the Bene Gesserits.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we go too far with that, so basically Paul's mother, Jessica, is a part of this group known as the Bene Gesserits. They are specifically trained, mostly women.
I think it's all women.
Is it all women? Yeah, because that comes up later with Paul, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, it's a group, and I don't fully understand. Like, it's
can-
super cool.
Basically control people by the way that they say things.
Yeah.
I know that that's like really reductive and you kind of need to read the book to understand, but like has a lot to do with like what inflection they put on words, the cadence they put on words, and like how the other person processes the information.
Yeah. And it's super cool. Like,
is cool.
I mean, it is really cool, and I do really like it. But there's a lot of different like organizations like this in this universe too. Like, the Dune universe is insanely huge. That's
Yeah.
one thing about this I think that people like, is it's very Game of Thrones in that way where, that whole world is fleshed out. This is like a universe fleshed out. It's
Yeah.
freaking crazy. So he does go through his little thing here because it's the my gosh, what's it called? Where he puts his hand in the box.
I don't
Right.
know, but they say they're checking to see if he's human, I still don't understand what that means.
No, me neither. Not even a little bit. And the lady who's doing this, she also has like a needle to his throat that if he struggles with his hand in the box, she'll just poke him with it and it'll kill him like
But it's
immediately.
poison that only kills animals.
Right.
Wait,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know what
I
that
think you're right.
means.
No, me neither. We see one used later and it works, so I don't know. um, basically he goes through this test though. He puts his hand in his box and it starts just like burning him. It hurts. It's like so much pain. But she says you cannot take your hand out of the box. Like no matter what, you can't. So he goes through it. He does it. He succeeds. And when he finishes, she's like, "Oh, no other Bene Gesserit sister took that much punishment, or has ever lasted that long while I've administered the test, or whatever." So from the beginning, we're seeing that Paul, because he's been trained by Jessica in the Bene Gesserit ways, he's pretty special. Like he at a young age, he's only 15, he's already able to like throw his voice and control. He has super good control over his body. Like if he gets stressed out, he can immediately start doing like breathing exercises that slow his heart rate and slow his mind down like immediately, even though he's so young. So we get really quickly that he is not a normal like young kid basically. And let's see. I'm pretty sure then they like pack their stuff, right? And they go to Arrakis.
Yes. Well, don't they mention that like he might be the Kwezek Sadarak or whatever?
The Kwisatz Haderach, yeah.
Yeah, the male version of a truth sayer.
Yeah, because he also has visions a lot. Which is not like some people seem to do it in this universe, but it's not like super common. Especially for somebody like so young like he is, it's really not common. But basically we get little glimpses. He's like he has seen himself on Arrakis, and he has possibly seen himself like leading people on Arrakis. So that will come up later as well. Yeah, and then the Reverend Mother mentions that because of his like powers already, he might be this Kwisatz Haderach. I think this is a good time to mention and ask you how you felt about the little like they're not necessarily chapter breaks, but where the
From
one
the
lady.
Princess Irulan.
Okay. How did you feel about those?
I don't know. I don't think I don't know. I feel like they were really kind of weird.
I
Out of place sometimes because they talk about random shit.
Yeah. Okay. So I enjoyed them in the beginning. But then when I realized these are all sayings, all from the Princess Irulan, and all from different books she has written, I was like, who is this person? And we don't even know who this is yet. And they're from the beginning of the book. We're getting these little blips. And we don't find out till way later who she even is. And it's after a while, they like drove me nuts. I hated it. And some of them, I love how it was just like, if you touch water, your hand will be wet. From the collected sayings of Muad'Dib. I'm like, what the fuck? This is so stupid. I couldn't stand them. Anyway, so the Atreides head to Arrakis, right? And they get to Dune. And they mentioned too that the Atreides set up their main like hub city in a different place, right, than the Harkonnen had.
Okay. So.
Yeah. And the Baron, like, he took all of this into account, I guess, when he set up his like that he was going to betray them or whatever, because he knew they probably wouldn't do that because the Atreides fully expected the Harkonnen to leave like specific spies and stuff behind on Arrakis when they left it. So yeah, they basically were like, apparently the Atreides was trying to stay one step ahead of the Harkonnen, which in this book, everybody's trying to be one step ahead of the last guy, but that guy's already like 2 steps ahead of them. But he doesn't know that they're already 1 step ahead of him. Like it's crazy. Plans within plans within plans.
Yeah.
So when they get to Arrakis, right? The Jessica, right, finds a note in like
Oh yeah.
the
forgot about that.
greenhouse thing, right?
Mhm.
And it's from another Bene Gesserit though, right?
Yeah, it has like a specific phrase in it that she knows that it's from
Right.
the Ben Gesserit.
It basically just says that the room she's in is safe, but that it might be the only place that's safe, like in the whole whatever they're staying in, palace, whatever it is. And I want to say shortly after that is when the thing happens in Paul's room, right?
Yeah, like his bed, like part of it folds down, and the hunter seeker comes out. It's like a remote controlled assassination tool.
Yeah, I picture like a flying syringe because
Yeah,
it's
maybe.
supposed to it's supposed to stick in you and then it puts poison in you and kills you. But it has to be remote controlled, so he knows somebody's steering it, and it fails to get him. It tries to lunge at him. Well, it tries to lunge at the door because the what's her face, the Fremen lady comes through, right?
Mhm.
Which we should mention that the Fremen are like the native people, essentially, right, of Dune.
I don't know if they're native, if they were put there,
Yeah,
but
because
yes,
I honestly I don't fully understand it at all
me
because I'm
neither.
pretty sure at one other point in this, right, they say that there were Fremen people on like a planet that was bountiful in water and they got so lazy that they just all died, or they got so uh lazy is not the term.
Complacent.
Yeah, complacent that they were like killed off basically. So I don't fully understand who the Fremen are, but for now, just know that the Fremen are people who have lived on Arrakis for a long time, and they are easily noted because of their blue eyes that have no whites in them, and that is due to the exposure to the spice. Um, So yeah, Paul saves this lady because when she opens the door, the hunter seeker kind of goes off of motion, and because that's the first place it saw motion, they like lunge it towards the door, and Paul catches it and drives it into the wall and saves her. So now she's like, "Oh my gosh, you saved my life! Like I owe you so much." And Paul's like, "Yeah, whatever, lady." Like he's kind of funny about it, how he kind of brushes it off. But she mentions something too, right? She says something like weird to him, something he's heard in like a vision or something, right?
Yeah, but I don't remember what she says.
No, I can't remember it. I just remember he does have like a weird interaction with her as a Fremen, and I want to say she's one of the first Fremen that he is like true-blooded Fremen, right?
Yeah,
Be-
I think so.
because he also trained with Duncan Idaho, who has kind of like he has Fremen eyes, but that's just because of how much time he's spent on Arrakis, right?
Think so. I don't remember that about Duncan, Idaho. I don't remember them mentioning him having blue eyes.
Maybe no, I might be mixing that up because Duncan Idaho was the one who trained him, but later on, right? They want Duncan Idaho to join the Fremen. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So I know I'm missing a lot of stuff, but what?
We're gonna have to, or we're gonna be here all night.
Yeah. But so right away, obviously, we see that as soon as the Atreides get there, the plans have been set in motion to betray them essentially and kill especially to kill like the Duke and Jessica and Paul. Those are like the three main people they want dead. And if I remember right, oh my gosh, what happens next? Drawing a blank here.
I think isn't this when they go for like a helicopter ride?
Oh yeah. To see how the spice is mined.
Yeah.
That's right.
Which I mean isn't
Yeah.
all that eventful. They just like I guess we get a little bit of like about the Baron's character because like the place they're rolling up on is gonna get attacked by a worm, and they like let them know, but he like personally saves a couple of the guys. Like he touches down his helicopter and saves a couple of the guys.
The Duke, yeah. Yeah, and this also shows like how deeply the like the betrayal already is, right? Because so the harvester is supposed to harvest the spice, which if they're out on open sand, these worms will show up, like Bo said, which are these like monstrosity creatures that live under the sand that will essentially eat anything that's not supposed to be on the sand.
Yeah, I right. It's like anything creating vibrations.
Yeah, and not normal vibrations. Like they know when it's like just an animal or like the wind or anything like that. So if it's anything that's like a machine or whatever, they'll try to eat it. So there's supposed to be these other ships called a carry-all that will go out and pick up the harvester and take it back to safe land when a worm has been sighted. So as the Duke and Paul, and this is where Dr. Kynes is with them, right?
I think so.
So Kynes is supposed to be what do they call him? He's overseeing the trading of hands, essentially, right?
Yeah.
I can't not remember what they call him now because I'm dumb. But basically, oh my gosh, Duke Leto, right? He's the first. Is he the first one, or is Paul the first one to see the worm?
I think it's Paul.
I think so too, because it's like a big deal, right? That he was able to
Yeah,
see
and we
him.
also get that scene that like he had his suit set up the correct way, and the doctor, the Fremen the Fremen guy that's with them notices that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he has his still suit on correctly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though nobody like helped him put it on, if I remember right. Okay. So that's right. He and so the Kynes is like, that's really weird that this young kid is able to do all of these things. And then he starts like spouting off stuff about like the prophecy, right? Oh, he will be trained in your ways, or he'll already know your people's ways, or something like that.
Yeah, the prophecy is really. I feel like the way it's spoon fed to us is so weird.
Yeah.
Because it's like you just get like bits and pieces as they come up.
Yeah. It's almost like somebody made it up as he was doing
it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it felt like to me too. It's like it felt like they were just kind of like jamming Paul into this place.
I agree. So yeah, it's a little ham-fisted in my opinion. Anyways, so Paul spots the worm, and they're supposed to have the carry-all show up and pick up the harvester, but they can't get a hold of carry-all. So like I said, this is where we kind of figure out how deep the betrayal goes, because after they rescue the men that they can, which they can't rescue all of them, we find out that the harvester had like set down on one or two of the crew members' orders, which they come to find out that they were like Harkonnen. So they're already trying to like disrupt the way the Atreides. This is like a few days into them being there.
Yeah, they're basically going out to like assess what the Harkonnen had left them, right? That's like why they're going out.
Yep. Yeah, and we find out that most of the stuff, so like the Harkonnen had already been on Arrakis for 80 years before this, mining spice and basically controlling the flow of spice to and from the rest of like whatever the reachable universe. And it comes up later, right, with the like the what's it called? Like the trade company or the trade guild. Is it some kind of guild?
It is some kind of guild, but I don't remember what it's called.
Yeah, but it's like a big deal, basically, that the Harkonnen have like run this for so long. And Leto he already kind of knows what's going on, because he's like, the Harkonnen have been here for so long that they could have stored up so much spice, on their home world or whatever, that it wouldn't even matter if, we took over now anyways. So
I mean, we don't find this out now, but I think it is kind of important to mention that like when you take spice, you are addicted to it and you have to continually take it for the rest of your life.
Yeah. and you're
You
addicted
can't-
almost immediately.
Yeah, you can't stop taking it or you will die.
Right. And so like the people on Arrakis, pretty much anyone who lives on Arrakis, everything has spice in it because
Yeah.
even just breathing in the scent of spice, it starts to affect your body.
Yeah, and I think it's a neat detail that it tastes different to everyone.
Yeah, I think so too. And it also like it's addicting in a way too because when you take it, it seems to like heighten your senses basically.
It heightens your I had to look this up. It heightens your senses and it slows the aging process.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Um, so there's a lot of details, and I'm getting caught up on the details instead
Yeah,
of just like main
let's
story.
skip to like the end of this book of like what happens.
Well, so basically, at this part, right, this is when Dr. Yui betrays Leto, right? But we find out that it's like it's like a feint inside of a feint inside of a plan
Right.
inside of another dream inside.
Yeah,
because
we got a little bit before with Jessica and Dr. Leto about like how he truly hates the Harkonnen because she can tell by people's facial features how they feel about things, and she can just tell that they don't like him, right? Because they killed his wife or daughter. I can't remember which one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so
and
basically,
there's also a little plot too where they're trying to like instill rebellion between the Atreides themselves. So they like make it seem like that Jessica's going to be the traitor because they don't know her lineage.
right. And during this whole thing, we're also understanding that Leto, his idea is to go to Arrakis and befriend the Fremen because while the Harkonnen have been there, they are like douchebags to the Fremen. Like they treat them like shit.
They treat them like fucking like like two races of people treat people differently today.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So Leto wants to go there and make peace with the Fremen basically and show them that like they aren't there just to like pillage this planet. They can work, harmoniously with these people. But before all of that goes down, Dr. Yui, he betrays these guys. And basically the only real details I remember is that Leto wakes up, right, with Yui like standing over him.
Yeah,
and
he drugged him.
He drugged him, and then he put the tooth in his mouth, right?
Mm-hmm.
That it contains like extremely deadly poison that if he bites down on the tooth, it basically explodes in his mouth and sends poison.
Well, he has to bite down on it and breathe it out. That's just one of the details I liked. That he has to like push it out with his own air.
Right. It's gonna kill him no matter what.
Yeah,
like Leto will die, but Yui is like, the Baron is gonna get you, and he's gonna find you. He said, so when he does, just remember the tooth. Use the tooth. Like he's putting this all in Leto's mind while he's drugged out of his mind.
He also drugs Paul and his mom.
Right. But Yui is letting them escape, right? Yeah. He lets Jessica and Paul escape, even though he is supposed to be killing all of them. Like he is the traitor.
Wait, they don't escape right now. They escape a little later. They get caught by the Baron.
Paul and Jessica do?
Mm-hmm. They escape later when they're in the Ornithopter.
They actually meet the Baron though?
Yeah, he interrogates them. Remember, because she's bound and gagged, so she can't use her powers.
Oh, that's okay. Yep, I do remember that. Yeah. That's right. Because okay, you're exactly right. Because he sends them, the two of them, and 3 men out to kill them out in the desert.
Yeah,
right?
he's gonna.
That's right.
He's gonna leave them to the worms, is what he says.
Yeah.
So there's no cleanup.
Yeah, because one of the 3 guys, that's Oliver Wyman's voice for sure. I remember that.
He shows up a couple times.
Yeah, that was the only time where I was for sure though. Oh, I know who that is.
I think he might have been Piter too. I kind of feel like it could have been him because how high.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay, I'd have to listen again, but you very well could be right.
And can I just mention, why is Piter voiced when he literally has like 17 lines? I don't understand that shit. And there are people in the book who talk way more and don't get a special voice actor.
I don't know, man.
It's weird.
I told you that part of it, the narration to me is a mess, in my opinion.
Well,
And it's not any one person's fault. It's collaboratively, it's a mess.
It feels like the first while they were like, yeah, this is working, and they're like, oh god, this is taking forever. And then
maybe
they just had one
it.
guy read a bunch of it, and they were like, wait, but other people were supposed to be speaking, and they're like, oh shit, you're right.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I did not like it. I didn't like them switching back and forth.
It would be fine if it was consistent, but it's not.
Exactly. If they had stuck with it the whole book,
is great.
Oh yeah.
Holy shit, that's so good.
Yeah. But I also don't like the fact that, like, you know, like Scott Brick is a perfect voice for the Duke, but then the Duke dies, so then he switches to another character. I'm like, what?
It's so confusing too.
Yeah, it makes it hard to understand. So I just didn't like that part. So yeah, spoiler alert, the Duke dies. Because what happens is that and this is again where it really is confusing to me, because it's like, in my understanding, both houses technically are under the Emperor, but basically the Baron is like, oh, I could just kill this house and it's no big deal. So I think there has to be a part of it that the Emperor is in on. It has to be.
I think, I'm pretty sure, isn't that kind of elucidated in the end?
Well, and it has to be elucidated. Well, elucidated, that's a great word you used. It has to be apparent though, because the Sardaukar are given to the Harkonnen from the Emperor.
True.
Those are the Emperor's like troops that are given to House Harkonnen. But from the way I understand it, and I don't really know why, the Emperor can't just like send his Sardaukar to kill the Atreides, because then the rest of the powerful houses would be like, holy shit, the Emperor's a douche. We have to fight back against him. So this way, it looks just like House Harkonnen betrayed House Atreides, and it's not nearly as big of a deal.
Yeah, and we don't really get like a bigger political picture, like if there are more than just these two houses.
Well, there has to be.
Yeah.
They talk about it because he says something about like, when you see Feyd-Rautha, when they like have the other people there watching him fight, they call them like lesser houses. So there's greater and lesser houses. So I'm assuming there's a lot of them.
Oh, there's got to be.
Yeah. Anyway, so back to the main story. So the Duke, he bites down on the tooth while he's being interrogated by the Baron and Piter, and there's a couple other dudes in there, like the captain of his guard and some other people. And unfortunately, the Duke manages to kill everyone but the Baron.
Well, the Baron only survives, right, because he keeps his shield at full strength at all times, and he has one of the best shields in the universe.
Yeah. And we should also mention the Baron is a fat piece of shit who can't even walk on his own. He literally has, what do they call him?
What are they called?
I can't remember the word for him, but essentially they're things that hold him up. Like he floats. He doesn't walk, he floats because he's too fat to even walk under his own weight. And that's an amazing detail. I really like that.
Yeah, I like that too.
So a part of the Baron's plan also is that for a long time, his nephew, the Beast, right? What's his name?
I don't remember, sorry.
Raban. Raban has been running Dune, and Raban is a piece of shit. He's a piece of shit to the Fremen. He's a piece of shit to his own men. Nobody likes him. So the Duke's idea too is after he gets rid of House Atreides, he's going to put his favorite nephew, Feyd-Rautha, in charge of Dune, and he's going to paint Feyd-Rautha to be like this amazing person to the rest of the houses and stuff like that, because he's going to come in and he will basically not be a piece of shit like his brother. So I don't even actually know if they are brothers. They don't really say that they're both just his nephew. That doesn't necessarily mean they're brothers.
Well, yeah, but that could mean like one is from a concubine and one is from like the actual queen, right?
Right. Yeah. 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 Or yeah, the Baroness or whatever it
Yeah,
would be.
Baroness. You're right.
Um,
Sorry, I
but
was just
yes,
thinking
you're
like
right.
normal Succession.
um, okay, so the Duke tries to kill the Baron. He fails. Paul and Jessica escape the dudes who were supposed to kill them, but word gets back to the Baron that they're dead. So they think that Paul and Jessica are dead. So they're like, perfect, we did it. We got rid of House Atreides. No big deal. They basically start trying to take everything back over on Arrakis. Meanwhile, Paul and Jessica are sort of rescued, right? They actually managed to travel a long ways across the desert, which is supposed to be really hard for people who don't live there.
Well, because they don't have, I can't remember the suits, right? So they're losing a lot of natural water.
Right. They do not have still suits, which we
Still
should
suits.
mention real quick. Still suits are basically what people on Arrakis and the Fremen especially have to wear because it recycles your body's natural water. Meaning that even after like a day of like hard work, you might only lose a thimble worth of water. Because if you didn't have this still suit, you would basically just dry up and die on Arrakis because there's hardly any water on the whole planet.
Yeah. And the book is kind of a lot about like just water.
Yeah.
And water is super important to the Fremen, as it would be for anybody who grew up on a desert planet.
Water is basically their currency too.
Yeah.
I mean, they
I didn't
literally
even think
trade.
about that, but yeah.
Yeah, they trade water and things for goods because it's so important to them. So Paul and Jessica end up being surrounded, right, by the Fremen. And
Well, first they meet up with the doctor, the guy that was on the plane with them, right? And he helps them escape the
Kynes.
storm. Yeah.
Yeah, Kynes. Yeah, that's right. But Kynes gets killed.
Yeah,
right?
he gets captured by the Baron and tortured.
Yeah, and then he's left out there to die without a still suit. And then he ends up we get a little bit of a like lore lit type thing. He can hear under the sand. There's like a lot of rumbling. And he knows that basically there's about to be a spice eruption right underneath him. But we don't fully understand why. We just know that there's a maker deep below the sand. And that
it's like a plant creature, right? The makers. They talk about them a little bit, but I didn't really understand.
Well, the makers are the worms to the Fremen. That's what they call all the worms as a maker.
Okay.
So
okay. I guess
my understanding is this is like a baby worm, basically. Because the worms, I don't fully get it, but the worms, because later on, right, they mentioned that the worms can drown, but are they turning the water into the spice? Is that what they're doing?
I think
like
so.
that's deep below, like in the planet.
Yeah, because they talk about like if there were no worms, there would be no spice.
Exactly, right?
But
is
they don't
that
really
also
understand the relationship?
Uh-huh. And the worms like protect the spice. That's why they're upset when like the humans try to mine it. It could be totally off base on that, but that's how I understood it. But basically, right, Paul and Jessica find themselves surrounded by Fremen. And Jessica gets the best of Stilgar, right? Who's like the leader of this group of Fremen. She like grabs him and holds a knife to his throat, and then Paul like disarms the other guy, and then he like somehow scurries up in this cave, like way up above him. But then Cheney, right? She's like right there with Paul, so she's a Fremen, who, I mean, Paul ends up basically like turning into like his wife, right?
Well, he had visions about her.
Yeah. Like he had seen her in his visions. So basically, though, with the way they're acting, the Fremen are like, okay, we can bring you guys with us. So one of the first things that happens, though, when they bring Paul in, and again, Dr. Kynes, he had been living with the Fremen for many, many, many years because I can't remember. Did he show up with the Harkonnen or something like that?
Yeah,
Like
he was like the planet surveyor from
is
like the very
that's
beginning.
the planetologist. That's what they call him.
Planetologist. There you go.
Okay.
Jesus
Yeah.
Christ.
Okay. Yeah, so he had been there for a long time, and basically he decided to live amongst the Fremen instead of living amongst like the Harkonnen, where they basically were using up as much water as they wanted and all this shit. So he basically he had also been talking about this prophecy, right, of this of their Kwisatz Haderach, right?
Yeah.
And that lends to both, right? The Bene Gesserits and the Fremen, correct? It's
Mhm.
like one and the same almost. So Stilgar, the chieftain, basically is like, okay, we got to bring these people back because he can see they're powerful in the weirding ways, is what they call them. And shortly after Paul gets there, right, he's challenged by the one dude to fight like immediately.
Yeah.
And
To the death.
yeah, Paul kills this guy. And then we find out a lot more about when somebody dies on Arrakis, you immediately take all their water. Like,
Yeah.
that's because it's so precious. You have to take all their water.
Right. The flesh belongs to them, but the water belongs to the tribe.
Yeah, exactly. So that's pretty interesting.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. Like that's one of the things I found so fascinating about this book, I guess, is like the preservation of water and like how consistent it actually was about like all the steps they have to take
Oh,
to
sure.
preserve the water. Like I really like that because that was
See,
my first thought. It's like, how are you gonna freaking get water on a desert planet?
and this shit, like the parts with the Fremen and what he's doing, I ate this stuff up because I think this stuff is so cool. Like how they live on this desolate planet, because we also find out that they like any little bit of water too that they can harness from within the ground. They also are using it to like grow plants and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So the Fremen, one of their biggest goals and one of the parts of this prophecy is that one day there will be enough water on Arrakis that it will look like most other planets, right?
It'll be a green and lush oasis, it's like the
Right.
words they use.
Exactly. That's part of both of these things. That's what the Fremen would like to see, and it's also part of this prophecy that has to do with this Kwisatz Haderach. And so after Paul kills this guy, they're like, holy cow, this kid he's legit. Okay, you are part of us now. Like you can be part of the Fremen. And they ask him what he wants to be called. And he wants to be called, he says, what do you call it when a mouse is jumping, from place to place? And they said, we call this Muad'Dib. So he wants to be called.
I actually think he says, what do you call the mouse that jumps?
Okay, that makes more sense. Yeah, the mouse that jumps. Yeah. So he wants to be called Muad'Dib. And this like blows a few people's minds because Muad'Dib is kind of the name that has come up in the prophecies for who will be there like Messiah. So he wants to be called Paul Muad'Dib.
And they also make a big deal about because he kills that guy and they kind of have like a eulogy where everybody has to speak. And Paul speaks, but he cries, which is like a huge deal to the Fremen, right? Because he's giving water to the dead.
Yeah. He's essentially, yeah, because that's like they attribute it to like if you pour out a drink for a dead friend, like if we poured out alcohol for a dead friend, it's similar to that because one, yes, you're wasting something that's considered precious, but it's seen as like a high amount of respect.
Yeah.
So basically too, from this point on, like Paul starts almost training these people, right? Because the Fremen are, the way I understand it, are amazing at fighting already.
Yeah, they're savages.
Yeah. But basically Paul just shows them more ways to like refine their techniques. And what we basically find out too is that the Fremen we find out they're amazing fighters because the Sardaukar that I had mentioned before, that are the Emperor's like elite troops that are showing up disguised as Harkonnen, they're like getting their ass kicked by the Fremen every time they come in contact. Yeah, every time they come into contact with the Fremen, they get their ass kicked. And we get little bits and pieces because we get the Baron talking to the god damn it, we mentioned him before. The the Count? Is that what he was? The Count or something like that? No, what the hell was he
I
called?
think so. It's
I-
like the Emperor's son, essentially, right?
Basically, yeah, well, the way I see it is he's like directly under the Emperor as far as succession would go, yeah.
So yeah, I guess it doesn't need to be his son. It could be his brother.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's just I think it's his title, but it would be the title underneath Emperor, basically. And I for some reason can't think of his name. But we get this conversation between the Baron and this dude about, oh, how many Sardaukar have you lost? And he says something about like, oh, well, we lost like whatever it was, you know. He tries to lie, but basically it comes up that it was like 20,000. And he says, that's funny because word has gotten back that they only killed about, 6,000 Fremen for that amount. And so he's like, you're losing men at almost a 4-to-1 ratio of Sardaukar, who are supposedly the best fighters in the universe or something like that. So he's like, you underestimate these people so much because the Baron assumes there's not that many Fremen on the planet. But the Count is like, no, there's like 5 million Fremen on this planet.
Well, and it comes up a lot too that they think part of Arrakis is completely inhospitable, but it's not. Like that's where Paul's at.
Yeah.
Is in the part of the world that the Harkonnen this whole time thought it was inhospitable, that nobody could live there.
Right, because of the storms and other things like that. Yeah, that's actually where like a large amount of the Fremen have been hiding. And basically what the Fremen want is to be left alone, essentially. They just don't want people coming in there and mistreating the spice and taking the spice to sell and stuff like that, because they have like a very symbiotic relationship with the spice. And what we come to find out is the worms. Exactly.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize you were going to say that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. We come to find out that like the Fremen, like everybody else, the Harkonnen and the Atreides, when they first got there, they fear the worms because they eat anything that comes on the sand. So
there's not much you could do to them. And they hate shields, which is like everybody's biggest deal to protect themselves. They use shields.
Yeah. They use these like personal shields on their body, or they'll put them on over whole bases or individual buildings or individual vehicles or whatever. But you can't do it on Arrakis because it will draw like every worm within like 5,000 miles to your location. Yeah. So they don't use them on Arrakis. So that's also a big deal because the Fremen know how to fight people without shields. That's also probably why they kind of kick the Sardaukar's ass a lot, because the Sardaukar, Paul brings this up all the time, is people who are used to fighting with a shield on are not very good at fighting without it usually.
Yeah, and I feel like the book is good about talking about those differences as Paul is training in the beginning.
Yeah. I think so too. So we also find out that the Fremen can ride the worms. They will draw worms to their location by using a thumper, and it makes a very regular beat. I like the way the narrator does it, where he's like lump, lump, lump.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. So it basically makes this very regular beat. That's what draws the worms, because that's something not natural. And when the worm then crests the sand, the Fremen stand off to the side, and they have like these hooks that they will hook into its like segmented body parts. And then it allows them to climb up on top. And then they can also use the hooks. Like if they climb down to the left, they can pull this part back, which kind of exposes the worm's like not weakened, but it's like sensitive inner skin. And it doesn't want its inner skin exposed to the sand, so it will roll to keep that side high, and essentially it will turn, and they can steer them that way, which is pretty freaking cool, because these things are supposed to be 500 meters or something like that. Like,
yeah, they mentioned in the beginning that there are some that could consume like a whole base at once.
Yeah, in their mouth. Yeah.
Big,
yeah. One detail I did not like is when Paul goes through his little summoning of the
Oh
worm
yeah,
to
and he
ride
rides
it.
the biggest one ever or whatever.
Yeah, and nobody mentions it again. Like,
That is super odd because they set it up like it's this huge trial for Mohadib, and he just like does it and then it's over. They never
Yeah.
talk about it again. That's a good point. I didn't even think about that.
no, and it like I also didn't like that Stilgar is basically like, oh, you've summoned like one of the biggest I've ever seen. And then Paul like gets on it. And then like 30 seconds later, everybody else is on it too, because they all grab on and they climb up there. And I'm like, that's fine. They all climbed on it, but nobody's like, holy shit, this is the biggest worm we've ever seen. Now it just doesn't get brought up again. So I thought that was weird. Um, but basically what ends up happening, right, is that Paul is starting to gather like a lot of followers from the Fremen. And now Paul wants to seek revenge, especially against Baron Harkonnen.
Yeah.
But he's also pretty sure that the Emperor is involved in trying to eliminate House Atreides. So now he's also got his eyes set on the Emperor as well. And essentially what happens towards the end is the way I understand it is the Emperor comes to Arrakis because the Baron was supposed to have taken care of everything. And he's been telling like the Count, who's then been telling the Emperor that Paul is dead, you know, that House Atreides is no more. But that's because essentially two things happen at once towards the end, right? Paul and the Fremen attack the main Harkonnen city, but the Harkonnen and the Sardaukar attack the southern regions where most of the the Fremen had been hiding, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So at this time, I need to mention a few things. Paul had a son with Cheney, right? And his son was in the south alone because they thought that's where he would be the safest. Paul also has a 2-year-old sister at this point because we had about a 3-year time skip in there. We should mention his sister as a 2-year-old, so Aaliyah. While Jessica was pregnant with her is when she became the Reverend Mother, right? Or a
Yeah.
Reverend Mother.
Yeah, and the way I understood that is she like essentially received all the memories of the Reverend mothers before her,
Right.
and that
That's how
happened
I
to
understood
her
it too.
daughter too, while she was
Yeah.
still in the womb.
Because she was pregnant with Aaliyah, yeah, Aaliyah received all of this stuff too, which it's not supposed to happen like that.
They call her an
So
abomination.
yeah, because she's like a 2-year-old who basically is walking around like a full-grown adult and talking like an adult as a 2-year-old. So
Well,
it's
and she talks about stuff she would have no way of knowing about.
yeah. So basically what this kind of culminates in though is when the Harkonnen attack them, they capture Aaliyah, which Aaliyah says she allowed herself to be captured simply
Well, yeah,
so she
even
could do
says,
this.
I listened to this part today. She killed like 18 Sardaukar by herself.
Yeah, she's 2.
Yeah,
We need
she's
to
2.
You know, she's
I mean,
2 years old.
We should mention too, though, that the Fremen, like even at like age 10, are supposed to be just as deadly as they are at like age 30 because they're
Yeah.
like trained from very young age.
Right, exactly. And Aaliyah mentions that she allowed herself to be kidnapped solely because then it sets up basically the way I understood this too, right? Is that I didn't fully understand this part. There's 2 guild members there, right? Tradesmen.
Yeah.
And the Emperor sees one of them basically because the shields go down over the whole city. That's how they know they're under attack. And if I remember right, one of them, his like contact slips and his eyes are like blue and blue and blue.
Yeah.
So is he a Fremen or
Yes.
is he just addicted to spice?
No, he's a Fremen. I took that as he's a Fremen, right? Like they infiltrated somebody.
That makes more sense. Okay. So, and
I mean, I guess that could be that he's addicted to spice, but then why would he have helped them?
I don't know. The very end like scene right here is a little muddled for me.
It's super confusing, honestly. I just listened to it. I'm like, wait, what? I
Yeah.
feel like the last bit, like with what happens to the Baron, is super rushed.
Oh, you mean where Aaliyah just kills him
Yeah.
immediately with the freaking Gom Jabbar?
Yeah.
The that's the needle thing in the beginning, right? That
Mhm.
yeah, that Paul was put under or was tested with was the Gom Jabbar. Yeah, he tries to grab Aaliyah and she's just like she just stabs him immediately and kills him. Um yeah, I thought that was freaking ridiculous. Um and basically Paul comes in with all his Fremen and essentially tells the emperor how it's going to be. And now we meet the emperor's daughter, who we've been hearing, Princess Irulan, who wrote all these books and all this other stuff about Muad'Dib and Arrakis Awakening and collected sayings of Muad'Dib and all this shit. We finally meet her for like 30 seconds. Enough time for Paul to be like, I'm going to marry her because I'm going to be the next emperor. And then he basically has to tell Cheney, he's like, don't worry, I'll keep you as my concubine. Like, like that's supposed to make her feel better.
Well, like his mother was with his father, right?
Yeah, kinda. Yeah. I just thought, and that's the end of the book, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's not really much more. I mean, they like they trap the emperor, right? And they're like, you're trapped to your prison planet Arrakis, but don't worry, I'll make the planet a better place.
Right.
And that's like the end.
Oh, see, okay, so and I'm glad you brought up Prison Planet, right? Because there is a prison planet in this um universe. And the Baron was thinking about making Dune the new prison, his own prison planet, where he would basically send prisoner after prisoner and basically just send all these people there just to mine spice for him. Right? That was part of his plan. Yeah. I don't know. I know we missed a ton of details, but that's because this book
I mean, we
is...
skipped over a bunch of like even the subplots, like with the main mentat for the Atreides. I can't remember his name. The old man.
It's not Piter. No. Piter's the other one. Is it Halleck? Gurney Halleck?
Yeah, the Baron takes him into his service. That's actually the reason the Emperor is there, right? Is to kill him because he wanted the Baron to kill him, but he refused.
To kill Halleck? Yeah. Yeah, and so Halleck is also like, it's like that plans within plans within plans type of thing, right? Because Gurney agrees to work for the Baron, even though the Baron puts latent poison in him. And so if Halleck betrays him, he'll just stop giving him the antidote and he'll die. But Gurney agrees to work with the Baron specifically because he knows that way he can get close to him and basically betray him later to Paul. It's a lot. It's a lot. Like,
it's a long book.
It's a long book, and I know we missed a ton of stuff. And I didn't even mention like a lot of characters, and I know that, but I started out trying to cover details in the beginning, and I felt like I was getting too slow, and I was getting too hung up on details.
We would still be here forever.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a lot. There's a lot of stuff I do like about this book. I like almost all the stuff to do with the Fremen. I like that they are just like a native people who are trying to like basically work with the hand they were dealt with this planet, right? And they've learned to live with this planet and all that stuff, which is really, really cool. And that these other people, the Harkonnen and whoever else comes in, is basically just trying to ruin that for them. I think that's a very, very strong like message overall for this book. But I wasn't a huge fan of like the prophecy stuff with Muad'Dib. I felt like you said,
it was weird. And like Paul even mentions, he's like, what does he say? He's like, I didn't even draw my knife today, but they will say I single-handedly killed 20 men.
Yeah. Even he knows. He's like, because he says basically the prophecy of Muad'Dib, or everything about Muad'Dib now will be known everywhere, even in like greater ways, basically. And that's how word gets back to like the Baron and everybody that they have the Fremen have been following this false god, Muad'Dib, or whatever they call it. And they don't know that it's Paul because they all have assumed Paul was dead all these years. So But yeah, I'll be curious to see when the new movie comes out, how the new movie goes about this. I think I will be much more receptive to seeing this on screen because I think it'll make a lot more sense to me. It'll be easier for me to follow because I'm pretty dumb. So
Yeah, I'll probably be able to understand a little better, I hope.
and I know there's people smarter than me out there that can translate this to like on the screen and make it much easier to follow. So unless you have anything else to say about
No,
this.
I'm good.
Okay, so what we think we might do is there's been 2 movies as far as I know. There was the 1984 version, and then there's the new one coming out this year in 2021. We might do like what we did with the Time Machine. Take a look at the old version of the movie, take a look at the new movie, and then compare them to the book as well. So if anybody thinks that's a good idea, please feel free to let us know. If you think it's a terrible idea, please feel free to let us know. We don't mind constructive criticism. But I think that is the plan, and I think that will be very interesting to do. So yeah.
I'm just curious when. So yeah, this one comes out in September, so not that long.
The new movie does?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, cool. So that gives us some
I'm
time.
just kidding. It comes out in October. So yeah, probably forget we even mentioned this anybody. But yeah, we'll probably wait to watch those until both of them are released.
Yeah, I would say once both of them are released, maybe we can take a look at it. And I mean, if it's going to be
Maybe
like a
it'll
thing.
be a Halloween episode.
Oh, there you go.
Not that this book has anything to do with horror.
So yeah, please. I think this one, this is maybe above our heads by large margins, and we would
I don't
like
think it's
to.
above our heads. I think I just didn't have enough time with it. It took me almost a month to listen to it, but I feel like I would have liked to listen to it again.
Sure.
Just to be able to get like the details down packed.
Yeah. And like I said, there's a ton of details here. And I think you could read into these till you were freaking, old and gray and still not fully understand all the concepts here. This book is dense.
It's super dense.
But yeah, so if anybody has anything to say about Dune or anything really, please feel free to contact us. We would really appreciate it. We enjoy hearing from people. So
yeah, what book are we doing next time, Ryan? We decided today, right?
yeah, I think we're gonna do. It's called Dead Acre, and it is written by. Come on, Rhett C. Bruno and Jamie Castle.
Oh, yeah, so stay tuned for that.
Yeah. Look forward to more Anime Squires. We are still covering Charlotte. So look forward to more of those episodes. They will be coming out too. And yeah, got anything else, Bo?
No, I'm good.
All right. So with that, we will catch you guys in the next one.